Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm your host. My name is Marcia Trajano, and with me is Dr. Anahy Fonseca. Hi, Anahy. Good to see you. It is indeed so good to have you here to discuss this topic, right? How to confront our challenges, our um, moments of crisis, anything that really moves away from a sense of balance and harmony. And the title today is Challenges in Health and Consciousness. And I just immediately thought about, Anaí, that you came with us and you opened your heart to talk about the issues that your home state of Rio Grande do Sul, it's the state in the southernmost uh, part of Brazil. It actually connects, right, with Uruguay. End of April and most of May, that state and all the population that state faced a terrible crisis from nature where there were floods, there were storms, and those floods that covered, if you will, over 90% of the state. But as of today, we know from statistics that it has killed almost 200 people and left almost a little bit over, actually, 500,000 people homeless. And that state, your home state, is still dealing with the crisis situations that were caused by the rains on a daily basis, right? So, according to some experts, they're saying that the metropolitan area of your city of Porto Alegre is still quite vulnerable to additional flooding, and that potentially the complete drainage of the water in the region may take at least another a couple of months. We'll see what's going to really happen as this is an unfolding situation. And as I was thinking about it, right, this is just one example of challenges that we face. You are facing this to the moment. I'm not, but you and anyone else out there, we're facing other moments of crisis, other challenges to us. But before we start our conversation in earnest around this topic, challenges of health and consciousness, I would like to thank all of you who are here with us listening to our podcast. And if this is the first time that you're joining us, I would love to say that a little bit about the program. Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis. And the goal here is to use that rich content is to use them to offer a, a a sense of safety, and it's a place that you can look in those themes that are presented to us with the courage to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from the different juncture here, which is a psychological lens and spirituality lens as well, so that we can bring perhaps insights, tips, and even some real world advice to help you and me, all of us, lead a better life. Please note before we start that this program is sponsored by three organizations: the TV Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, and the International Spiritist Council. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you'd like any additional information, please note that we have an amazing website, the spiritist.us, with a lot of information, a lot of resources for you. And if you have any questions, any feedback, any thoughts, write to us. We'd love to hear from you. But wanted to say, Anaí, before we start our conversation, I I told you about what came to my mind just before meeting you today. But I wanted to ask you, can you perhaps take a moment to provide your view on the correlation between challenging times, the experiences that we live, and the idea of conflict, and how they lead to an awakening and expansion of our consciousness.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Well, uh, yes, of course, it's a synchronicity, right? That we are talking about challenges in health and consciousness. And at the same time, I myself, I'm living here a conflict with everybody else in my state, of course,
Yes.
because of this, climate um, challenge and the floods and all of that. So, what I think, Marcia and everybody, is that Joanna says that a conflict is the certainty, uncertainty about what to do or not to do, which always causes imbalance and affliction, right? Because we have to decide, we have to discern what to do. So,
And
for
we can, right? We can do whatever we want to do. We have the freedom as
yes,
human beings. But I
yes.
love that idea that she brings right here. That's the area of, if you will, conflict. What may I just say? It's something that came to my mind, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
But we often bring to, and I'm talking about in the business environment, right? There's often training and books and a lot of content to talk about how to manage conflicts, and yet we understand that the conflicts really just means diversity, right? It's diversity of how to approach an event, a problem, or anything else. And what comes to my mind with the citation that you brought to us from Joanna de Angelis, I keep thinking maybe that is that point, that juncture where there's diversity in how we handle that point of conflict. And with diversity, we need to perhaps bring about, I'm thinking here, bring about tolerance, it maturity, right? The psychological maturity, and the outcome of that is actually harnessing the sense of balance that we all should have. But go ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, no, but it's nice because it's exactly that I was going to say.
Mm,
That it depends on the way that we are looking at things, because each one of us as individuals, we have our own experiences in this life, and of course we are talking about spiritist psychology, so in other lives also. So it's everything that we have learned, our spirit has learned, that it's going to express itself, these contents, according to the life that we live here, and the personality, of course, that
yeah.
the ego consciousness, right? The personality that we developed in this life. So it's like some things are going to manifest themselves in our complexity, right? And these things are going to affect the way that we are looking to things, and the amount of discernment. Joanna talks a lot about discernment, to learn how to
Mhm.
discern, first of all, what I'm feeling, first of all, about myself, my inner world, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and how I act upon something, right? So it's going to depend on how much I know myself, because otherwise I will be flood. I don't like to to make the analogy because it's in my mind. So,
And quite
but
traumatic, right? There is a
yes,
trauma to you
yes,
personally, and to many of our friends, family members, and so many more that is facing uh, loss, material loss,
yes,
and also mourning, grieving those other people that actually were impacted and
And
died to that
and actually,
situation. Yeah.
yeah, there is a synchronicity with our times, the times that we are living. That's what you are talking about.
Mhm.
And for instance, we see in a lot of people's dreams with water, for instance,
Interesting.
tsunamis and a lot
Yeah.
of water coming. And always, usually, is when the person is going through a crisis, conflict, as Joanna is talking in this about conflicts in her wonderful book, Times of Health and Consciousness.
Mhm.
So the thing is that when we dream of water coming towards us and we feel threatened and we feel fear and scared, so we also make this analogy with the symbolism of the unconscious, okay? And the unconscious contents coming and kind of threatening the ego, all
Yeah.
right? So there is an analogy, and of course, people all around the globe that are suffering crisis
Uh-huh.
because of climate, because of wars, and one of the, and even someone that because we have the collective unconscious that connect
Mhm.
all of us, the depths of the psyche, right? So we even in different countries and different cultures, but we know that something is coming, let's say, because we feel and we have this information in our
Mhm.
collective unconscious. So we feel that we are in a transitional phase,
Mhm.
collectively speaking. But also, of course, we have our own personal growth and our own personal development and crises and conflicts. So, as within, so without. I mean, in and out, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the synchronicities happen. So, what I talk about the floods and the water coming, okay, it's happening in my state, happened, and we are living
Mhm.
the consequences materially speaking, okay? And then, of course, the ego is going to be afraid, is going to be challenged of how we are talking about challenges of how to face that. What
Yeah.
are internal resources, let's say, to face this kind of challenge? And my resilience, we talk a lot about being resilient. So we know that spirituality is a very powerful uh, tool, let's say psychological tool for resilience to help one
Mhm.
face challenges and crises. But we also have the collective suffering, right? And we are
Yep.
in a collective. And we also have a brother, because we are brothers and sisters as human beings. So, it's the ripple effect. Come what it's happening inside of me, it's happening outside of me. Okay, and it goes both ways. So, what we are talking, Marcia, and are asking me is exactly how we face this kind of challenges. So, of course, we are going to face with the resources first individually that each one of us has. Okay. And as I was telling you, Jung compared the nature of consciousness
Mhm.
to the eye. That's very interesting because he says that only a limited number of things in our vision, right, can be held. Okay. We can have contact at any one time, he says. And in the same way, the activity of consciousness, he's making this metaphor, is selective. So
And it
what?
has to be, right, to protect our ability to absorb that, isn't it?
Yes, for instance, you were talking and I grasped one concept of what you're talking. And a lot of people are going to say, well, but then I didn't answer what Marcia, because we are the ego is selective, right? So
Yeah.
and also about, it depends on our psychological type, the
Yes.
level of stress that the
Yeah.
ego is going under. Of
Yeah.
course, here we have been talking and we love to talk. So, and we love that everybody is excited about our podcast and things like that. So of course we are more relaxed in a way, but also okay, the ego is here, and what's the focus? So when you talk to me and ask about the flood and how I personally am seeing that and facing this challenge, for instance, of course, then is the ego consciousness that is going to pay attention to your question, or
Yep.
and but at the same time, see, that's very interesting. We know that we have a higher self. So
Yes.
I know that in my ego, for instance, I have complexes. I have stuff in my unconscious. For instance, I have memories of the flood. I have the worries with people that I love, and the worries with the people from my state, even if I don't know them, because of course we are in the same, all suffering the same challenge. So everything comes and
Yeah.
like presses the ego to, wow, that images come, to your mind. Sometimes people will remember some dreams that we were talking about. Oh, I have been dreaming about
Yes.
water. I have lots
Yes.
of patients that previously
Yeah.
to the floods have been dreaming about waters. And
Interesting.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting. And even if the water, the difference, the water is clean, if the water is dirty, because of course it was dirty materially in the flood. But I
Mm.
have had people
Uh-huh.
dreaming about water. Look at that. That's very interesting. Previously to the flood,
Mm-hmm.
I have had some, and actually they were women, maybe because women are kind of more, sometimes because of the subjective part, that it's kind of easier for us, the
Mm-hmm.
psychology of us.
So you're speaking about that intuition and that
Yes,
contact with all the there is out there.
intuition,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Not that, of course, men, of course, they also have, but for us, it's kind of easier.
Yeah.
That's the reality of
And it's
our
evidence that
psychology.
you're not just speaking. There's evidence to that
Yeah, that's
intuitive
evidence.
nature. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So because it's intuition comes easier, and also the subjectiveness of the psyche, it's all in our psychology. So I have had some patients, women, dreaming with a lot of water, like
Yeah.
crossing a river, for instance, or swimming I can remember one person swimming in a river,
Yeah.
but then the stream was really tough.
Yes.
And actually it's interesting because she had been a champion. She used to swim in competitions
That
when
is
she
awesome.
was,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And then
What
suddenly,
I say, what's awesome is that linkages, right? Her personal life, that collective unconscious, and the reference to water, and how she specifically is now bringing up the challenges that everybody's going through, right?
yes, because that was like 2 weeks, a couple of weeks previous to the floods. And
Uh-huh.
even the rain hadn't started yet, the way it rained. So she's dreaming about swimming in this river, and then
Yeah.
the stream got really tough,
Yeah.
and suddenly she said, well, I'm getting tired, but the water was clean and the river was beautiful. I'm getting tired. And when she says that,
Uh-huh.
suddenly she sees dolphins
Ah,
swimming,
gorgeous. Yeah.
and the dolphins kind of accompany her, to go back, not to face all, the river so strong and all that, and to go back to land. So we talked about that later on the floods, and the symbolism of the dolphins are, they are very spiritual. The symbolism is very spiritual. So she was connecting with something deep inside of her, because when we talk about with this kind of symbolism in the dreams, we are talking about the higher self. So she knew in advance, okay, in her psyche, the dreams, because we know that it's the Jung's self concept of the self, capital S, what we call higher self. that is in charge of the messages of the dream. Okay, so of course that was previous to the flood. So she was having the information that she would have to face tough times, but she was also having the information that in the dream that she didn't have to face straightforward, that maybe it would be nice and to use her spiritual resources to just step back and watch
Yes.
the thing and not connect in a way, to go there and try to face that all that river, the strength of the river, try to cross, to
Yeah.
something unknown.
So
So,
there's something really interesting, and I when you talk about this person that used to right went used to swim in a swim team, and that's quite powerful, right? When you see I'm traversing this X amount of kilometers, if you will, and I can do this because I know how to swim. That's a tool, right? That's a technique. There is a experience, etc. And but to me, when you said that the dolphin symbol it's a highly spiritual, to me, and what I thought about a dolphin, the symbol of the dolphin is of joy, right? You often see them footage of them in the ocean, just flipping and coming. So there's a really interesting view of being able to play, to be present. And I also, what came to my mind, and maybe you want to relay that message further, but Paul Simon, the singer,
mhm.
he wrote a beautiful song that to me is one of his best work, which is Bridge Over Troubled Water,
Oh, yes, I love that. I love.
right? And if you think about it, he starts with, when you're weary,
Yes.
feeling small, and feeling small to me as you speak about the threat to the ego, right? With a crisis. That's what came to my mind. Feeling small, right? And then he goes on to say, when tears in your eyes, I'll dry them all. I'm on your side, which to me, there's this sense of a spiritual um, embrace, right? Is how the sense of your own spirituality can bring you the comfort. I'm on your side, right? And then he goes on, when times get tough, right, rough, and friends can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. And he keeps repeating that, right? When this happens, when darkness comes, pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I'll lay me down. And I'm thinking about the song that I love so much, and I'm connecting with the thoughts that you bring in here with the sense courage, right? With a sense that psychological maturity, with a sense that consciousness is all about going through those troubled waters, right? That you mentioned before, just this, all of this craziness, this noise, this uncertainty. But when you reach a sense of balance, of harmony, of courage, you are like a bridge, and you lay yourself down, and you're able to see all of it, those troubled waters go down, because you can. And I think that's the message for all of us, if you will, that we must harness all the goodness that is out there, all this amazing divine mercy, right? This sense of you're not alone. You're not alone, even when you think you're alone. We're here. We're here together. But go ahead, Anahy.
Yes, so exactly, that's the idea. So the unconscious for Jung and for Joanna has wisdom. And
Mm-hmm.
we have, because we know that the self, the archetype of the self, uh, and what we call, Jungians call the imago Dei, the image of God, our inner image of God, is deep within our unconscious. So it has wisdom and can
Mm-hmm.
give us strength. So, just to talk about the symbolism, look at that. It's exactly what you mentioned. I love this song, by the way. So exactly what you mentioned, that it's, the symbolism of the dolphins. They are related to peace and harmony.
Mm-hmm.
In, as you said, they are joyful, graceful, compassionate, intelligent, generous, and protective.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they say it also symbolizes cooperation and freedom. Its energy is positive, and it is often a symbol of love, life, and joy. So
Beautiful. Yeah.
imagine that the for this person, the self, okay, the higher self was bringing a message before the floods and the awful, crisis and climate, catastrophe in my state.
Yeah.
So it was bringing a message previously to the event that she would have to face, and that, all everybody here would have to face, but a message for her specifically because it was in her dream,
Mm-hmm.
that, that she had this positive,
Mm-hmm.
energy, that this love, life, and joy. And of course, there is something important for you to consider. This person had been, in the past, okay, in the
Mm.
past, a couple of years ago. Actually, when she started analysis, she was in depression, recovering from a depression.
Ah. Mm.
So, we also say that, the message of the self in dreams, usually there are some reasons why the self, of course, there are always reasons why the self sends some images, some symbols for the ego to consider. And, one of the main purposes is to bring some compensation, okay,
Mm-hmm.
from like, broaden the consciousness, okay. As we were saying, that Jung said that, compare the nature of the conscious as, to the eye, so that
Mm-hmm.
we have limited vision. So the self brings, like, some material, some images and symbols and subjects to be considered, information to be considered by the ego, so that the ego can expand its vision.
Beautiful.
This is
Yeah.
beautiful because it's a compensation thing. So, to a symbol that talks about peace and harmony in the middle of a crisis. Well, actually, it was not previously to a
Yeah.
crisis. Look at how, the wisdom of the unconscious.
And
Okay.
to me, and when you say that, right, it's all of this beautiful imagery that spoke to her specifically through her dreams, right? But what comes to my mind as well is almost a message. Pay attention to all the strength that you have, right? Pay attention and don't be reactive to the crisis that's coming your way. When we talk about health, right? Challenges in health and consciousness. To me, it's really how do we put it all together? How can I maintain my health? And by that, we can talk not just the mental health, emotional health, but also physical health, because we
Yes.
understand, right, that often whatever comes through in those moments of crisis, and I love what you said before, right? It is really your egoic constructs feeling threatened and fighting, right? Fighting, and that fight may lead to many different types of response, including the somatization of diseases, right? Even though most often when you talk about uh, challenges in your health, right? I almost think that you're talking about mental health exclusively, but it's not.
Yes, because body and mind are connected and the
Mhm.
spirit, right? But you
Mhm.
said something really important because here we have a paradox. The
Yeah,
ego, because when the flood started, she was really afraid that she would get into a depression again,
yeah,
of course, and connecting to all the suffering that everybody was going through. And she is a medical person also, so she, of course, she was talking to patients, not from the mental health, but she sees patients in her specialty all the time.
so
So how can
clinical health, right?
clinical health? Yes. So
Yeah,
how can we talk about peace and harmony that are in the symbol of the dolphins?
yeah,
At the same time that we talk about, fear, anxiety,
yeah,
at the same time, you
yeah,
the fear, anxiety that a conflict like this that go through provokes in the ego. Yes, we can. That's the
hmm,
beauty of it because if we know ourselves, and that's what Joanna asks us to do,
hmm,
if we know, if we are in contact with our truth, inner
yeah,
truth, of course,
yeah,
and with our shadows, our complexes, our difficulties. Joanna talks about our limitations,
hmm,
how to, it's the way to be in contact, to know ourselves, is the way to overcome these limitations. Because if we really look deep within ourselves and have
hmm,
some calm, even in the middle of a crisis, a conflict, and see within ourselves which emotions I'm feeling, how am I facing this with some calm, at least, of course, even if in the first moments we get fearful and threatened and all of that. It's okay, it's normal, it's part of the reaction of the ego. But if I can, like, that's why prayers, meditations are so important.
yeah,
Reading a sacred text, the one that people are more connected, bringing in the mind. Joanna talks about its beautiful landscape, the
yeah,
inner landscape, right? So if I calm down, if I do a little bit of meditation, bring a nice landscape, then I can connect with the wisdom that is in my unconscious. Maybe talking about this person, and she did, I will remember the dream that I had some couple of weeks ago, and then I will understand that the higher self, the ego, didn't know what was going to happen, but the higher self that is connected with the what we call the transpersonal dimension of the psyche, the collective
uh-huh.
unconscious, knew that it was going to happen. And we know
It's
through
almost like a
spirit.
bypassing, right? Anahy,
Yes,
bypassing
yes,
the ego and
because
bringing
it's
that,
out of space and
yeah,
time. The ego
yeah,
is connected with the space and time, but the higher self, the Jung's self, because Joanna de Angelis said that it's our spirit, and so of course, there's our spirit is connected totally with the spiritual dimension, with this what we call in psychology the transpersonal dimension of the psyche or collective unconscious.
what
So
would you say, perhaps, sorry to interrupt you, but it's just intriguing to me. What would you say to everyone who's watching and listening to this program today? What would you maybe recommend for anyone? It doesn't have to be a victim of a horrible, catastrophic flood in your state, but it can be I'm fatigued. I don't want to go back to work. I'm feeling depressed. I am so afraid that this is going to happen to me. It's that what would you recommend for those individuals? Perhaps I'm thinking here, maybe you're going to say something about being connected to yourself, but also document those thoughts, those dreams. What are your
yes.
thoughts?
Yes, I would say something that I learned with Joanna.
Mm-hmm.
that this self-analysis, don't be afraid of what you're feeling and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention, look at what you are
Yeah.
feeling and thinking, and how you react. This is very important. She talks about that because we're talking about challenges in health and consciousness. So
Yeah.
we have to bring these contents to
Mm-hmm.
consciousness,
Yeah.
and how and pay attention to how we react. What is the act that is a result
Yeah.
from my emotions and feelings? Because as she says, we are going to repeat them
Yeah.
until we identify, discern. As I told you, she uses a lot of the word discernment.
Yeah.
So discern that my emotions, my way of thinking, in this kind of situation, because these situations are going to repeat themselves in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and she said, face the dark emotions and the
Yeah.
dark thoughts. I love that.
And this is so important, right? And we have become this is our inheritance, right? Our society has become quite judgmental. If this happens, this is good. This happens, so the duality, right? And we come with amazing individuals like Jung, Joanna de Angelis, and many others that bring to us this notion of you more than this dual response to an event, that because of it we should look with equanimity or no judgment, right? And just embrace. And the more we embrace what we could call the dark and the lightness of your being, the more we're able to really embrace who we are in our totality.
Yes, and change the behaviors that are caused by our shadows, for instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we
Mm-hmm.
cannot change something that we deny within ourselves. Of course, we are going to repress, it's going to be in the unconscious, in the
Yeah.
personal unconscious. And how are we to work with these issues, you know? So it's very important that we, as you said, be compassionate to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have this bad habit of canceling ourselves because
Oh,
everybody wants to cancel this and that nowadays. This is so
yeah.
silly from the psychological point of view. If I cannot hear something that I disagree,
Yeah.
with an open heart and respect for other people's thoughts, and I'm
Yeah.
not a psychotherapist of anyone, only the people that come searching for my professional help, let's say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we should try to be therapists of ourselves,
I
because we
love
have
that.
this
I really
very,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have this possibility. The healer, the
Uh-huh.
archetype of the healer is within all of us. In therapy and in psychoanalysis and in analysis, what we do is to temporarily project the healer. The archetype of the healer gets active, but I still don't recognize in myself. So I have to see a doctor, an analyst, a psychotherapist. For some time, it's okay. But if I realize, and if the therapy helps the person to realize that the healer is within myself,
Ah, yes.
okay?
And
So
and
this
and
is the
and that
real empowerment.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. And no. Sorry for the thoughts keep coming to me today. My apologies. But I always as you're talking about it, I keep thinking um as the healer, the self-healer, the your own psychotherapist, right? We look out to ourselves with curiosity, right? And we pay attention, not just at the surface level, but pay attention the depth of why am I feeling this way, and we eventually we are able to use those challenging times, those painful moments, those moments of crisis, as we talked earlier, as the connecting point, the linking pin, if you will, to our true consciousness in its own expansion. I was reading, not so long ago, about consciousness from a psychological definition, and I think I would love to hear your opinion, because I think this is very much um, material view of what consciousness is, but the definition from a psychological point of view of a consciousness is that it is a critical personality type or trait, right? That will reflect that consciousness, the tendency to be responsible, organized, hardworking, goal directed, and the ability to adhere to norms and rules, right? And I thought about it. And to me, this is very material, because I would talk about this from a work a work environment. This is what we all need to be. We need to be consciously aware, because for me to be productive, right, to be well, to be a contributing member of any given situation or organization, I need to harness the idea of responsibility or accountability, right? I know if I'm causing the totality of this community, this organization, and because I'm responsible for it, I also need to be responsible for undoing any harmful things that I caused. I also need to be organized. I need to commit myself to whatever theme by being hardworking. And but I can only do that if I understand the norms, right? If I can understand the rules of how this cell, this organization works, and because of it, I am now um, I'm able to really be open to experiences. I can have a much more creative bent. I can be right. I can do all of those things that will enable me as a human being uh, to be better, to be a contributing person with everybody else. Don't know if it makes sense to you, but this is how I interpreted the definition from a psychology of consciousness. I know that you are a student of Joanna. I know that you also uh, really focus your studies in consciousness and the expansion of consciousness. I'd love to hear from you about how do we define that, Anaí?
It's kind of hard because people
Yeah,
think a lot in mental health professionals about
yeah,
what's consciousness. Even physicists
yeah,
nowadays, you know, a
yeah.
lot of them. So I was listening to you, and I think all that you described for me, it seems like we are talking about the ego consciousness, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
for Jung, the ego is just the center of consciousness.
Ah, I see.
Consciousness
I
for
see. Yeah,
Jung is a broader than that. Even consciousness is broader than that, because then the ego is what's paying attention in doing all this hard work, as you say.
as you
Uh,
mentioned before, right? That
yes, and has a limited view. Okay,
mhm.
so I think when even in the working environment, if you stress too much, because I'm always worried with burnout, you know, and
Yes,
everything
ma'am.
that
Yes, ma'am.
you, yeah, because people we see a lot of people in our offices with burnout, and so I think this kind of describing consciousness can lead to burnout, because then you are always worried with what I'm not perceiving, what I'm doing that it's not correct. We when I was listening to it, it's like we are talking about flaws that we can
Yes,
find, and then this is giving everybody a burnout, you know, because I'm always have to produce more, and I'm always running against even the clock and whatever, and the activities in the day. So I think it limits us, and I think
yes,
it's like a trap that even in the working environment people haven't realized yet. if you put so much pressure that consciousness is it's all of that, and I have, it's like a list of what to do, what I'm
Uh-huh.
doing right, what I'm doing wrong. It's giving everybody burnout, so,
Yes,
and
yes,
depression and anxiety. So I think we should understand that the ego, it's limited by its own function, but it's we have to be very compassionate with the ego. As a young psychiatrist, we are trained with the functions of the ego. When the
yeah.
person gets in the hospital, we give, when I was listening to you, I said, wow, I'm back to the hospital in my psychiatric training,
Oh,
checking, doing a checking of the ego functions, and really, I went to Jung previously. Even actually, I found Jung because of Joanna. It wasn't
yeah,
the other. So, but I'm studying Jung and Joanna. I found, wow, I can relax,
yeah,
because it's not all about the ego and the way that the ego connects with. We have a higher consciousness. We have to trust this higher consciousness in the day by day, in work. We have to pay attention to synchronicities. Maybe I'm doing a task, Marcia, that I was not supposed to do. Oh, but my boss is going to get mad. Sorry, but I have to, as Jung said, I have to be loyal, and for my first loyalty should be with my higher self,
I
because
love
my
it.
higher
Yes,
self knows what I'm supposed to do. So if I'm doing a task that it's sending me through, it's very tough to do that, to say no to the outside world. It's very tough. I understand that. And even when only when the ego is mature enough can the ego have strength. Joanna talks a lot about the moral strength. Okay, so the moral strength, we are going to have conflicts not only with outside crisis, but with, we are talking also about inner conflicts, right? Because they are from our development, the development not only of the personality in the life cycle, but of our spirit, that it's here for some purpose, and
yeah,
it's not for pleasing everyone. I'm not here to say yes to everyone or to please everyone, and not even to be, a wow, very successful professional, for instance. It's nice if I am, and if
yeah,
it's nice, of course, if I of course I have to earn my living. But sometimes people say, oh, you are crazy, you are leaving that job that you are earning this and that much to go do that it's nothing, nobody's going to pay attention to you, and you are going to have to live with less. But that choice I have to do by myself, not
yeah,
because of what people are saying. And only I am responsible for this discernment, as Joanna
yeah.
says, and if to check my inner peace.
I
Am
love
I?
what you're saying because, sorry for my coughing here, but really like it because I think when you talk about ego and the push to be successful, for example, professionally or whatever, um, this ego reflects where we are today in our
Yes,
society. And unfortunately, we are, and I keep thinking of the image of a shekel, right? We're shackled to the notion that I am successful, I am accepted, I am revered, even if I am a construct of this society of production. So long I
yes,
have a job, so long I have to do. The minute you give up all of this, like you're now dismissed. But the pandemic, right, 2020 through they called about 2021, so those 2 years where the entire population of this planet was very vulnerable to COVID-19. But during the pandemic, um, one of the things that are quite interesting was how it triggered so many people to exactly what you said, letting go, and
Yes,
decided to say goodbye to their former identity through work, family, etc. Hence the great resignation, right, where everybody had to rethink about how do we go about being good to myself, to ourselves, and to find a place that I am no longer repressed, oppressed by the expectations of the world, and instead I am hearing to that higher self, that connection to,
that's it.
the divine within, right?
That's
To all that
perfect.
is good. Yeah.
And to end our conversation, I would like to leave two because I love to see what Jung says, what Joanna says,
Yeah.
how they connect with each other. It's beautiful to see that. And actually, it's a joint work, and
Mhm.
we know that she's using a lot of Jung's concepts, of course, because they have been working previously before, of course.
Yeah,
So
so good. Yeah.
so to connect everything that we have said, two sentences, one by Jung and finishing with Jonah. This is beautiful. Jung says the unconscious is
Yeah.
not just evil. Okay, it says that because of the personal unconscious Freudian, that all the repressed, the shadow. So it says the unconscious is not just evil by nature. It is
Mhm.
also the source of the highest good, not only dark, but also light, not only bestial, semi human, and demonic, but superhuman, spiritual, and in the classical sense of the word, divine.
Love it.
That's Jung.
Uh-huh.
And now, Joanna, so that we can close our conversation. Joanna says, consciousness expands the horizons of thought, promoting real health, which is expressed as balance before the cosmos. Isn't that beautiful?
It's very comforting, both of them, right? To first of all, addressing those inherited perhaps concepts of judgment, right? And the idea that if it's in your unconscious, it's something that we have repressed somehow, and we have repressed because it's not acceptable. And then to see this microcosmos of who we are in relation to the entirety of our existence. Very, very nice. We are at time though, Anaïs, so I think we just need to park that really great discussion to a future one so we can maybe address some more of some concepts. And I really appreciate you being here with us. I appreciate you uh, being not only following this program, but also giving us your feedback. And Anaï, we'll meet again soon. Thank you so very much for today's contributions and discussions.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.